OmniTalk Fast 5 is brought to you by the A&M Consumer and Retail Group. The A&M Consumer and Retail Group is a management consulting firm that tackles the most complex challenges and advances its clients, people, and communities toward their maximum potential. CRG brings the experience, tools, and operator-like pragmatism to help retailers and consumer products companies be on the right side of disruption. And Miracle, the catalyst of commerce. Over 450 retailers are now opening new revenue streams with marketplaces, dropship, and retail media, and succeeding. With Miracle, you can unlock more products, more partners, and more profits without the heavy lifting. What's holding you back? Visit miracle.com to learn more. That's MIRAKL.com. And Symbi. Symbi powers the most retail banners in the world with today's only multimodal platform for in-store intelligence. See how Albertsons, BJ's, Spartan Nash, and Wakefern win with AI and automation at SymbiRobotics.com. And Infios. At Infios, they unite warehousing, transportation, and order management into a seamless, adaptable network. Infios helps you stay ahead from promise to delivery and every step in between. To learn more, visit Infios.com. And Clear Demand. Pricing shouldn't be guesswork. Clear Demand's AI-powered pricing, data, and optimization solutions help retailers stay competitive while protecting margins. Smarter pricing, stronger profits. Clear Demand makes it happen. Learn more at cleardemand.com/OmniTalk. And finally, Ocampo Capital. Ocampo Capital is a venture capital firm founded by retail executives with the aim of helping early-stage consumer businesses succeed through investment and operational support. Learn more at ocampocapital.com. Hello, you are listening to OmniTalk's Retail Fast 5, ranked in the top 10% of all podcasts globally, and currently the only retail podcast ranked in the top 100 of all business podcasts on Apple Podcasts. The Retail Fast 5 is the podcast that we hope makes you feel a little smarter, but most importantly, a little happier each week too. And the Fast 5 is just one of the many great podcasts you can find from the OmniTalk Retail Podcast Network, alongside our Retail Daily Minute, read each day by the one and only Chris Walton, which brings you a curated selection of the most important retail headlines every morning, and our Retail Technology Spotlight series, which goes deep each week on the latest retail technology trends. It's July 16th, 2025. I'm one of your hosts, Sam Mazinga.
And I guess now, Ed, I'm the one and only Chris Walton.
You are. And we are here once again to discuss all the top headlines from the past week, making waves in the world of omnichannel retailing. And Chris, joining us today, as they do once a month, every month, we have managing directors from the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, Chad Lusk and David Brown. Welcome, Chad, David. We're so excited to have you. You're typically our end of the year guest, so I love that this is like our mid-year preview, the July preview of what might happen on the end of the year podcast. Chad Lusk, how are you doing today? Are you ready for this show?
I'm doing great, guys. It's good to be back. Yeah, this is a little meta. I mean, last time I was on was the end of year award show, the Omnis, as
yes,
now dubbed. Thank you very much. But I was actually sitting in for David, not alongside David.
That's true.
Using his mailed-in envelopes to unleash the winners. So
that's
right. It's been about 3 years since David and I did this together. So we lit that show up. We'll do it again here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think of you every time I pick up an envelope, which is rare, Chad, but every time those white envelopes, I pull one out, I think about it. Chad, before we go to David's introduction, quick background on you for those of our listeners who might be joining us here for the first time, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Partner and managing director out of Chicago. Background pre-consulting here as I was a multi-time chief marketing officer, chief strategy officer across both CPG and retail. Nowadays, I spend most of my time on broad scale transformation with a real focus on growth and commercial excellence.
Wonderful. We have some stories for you today, Chad, that we're quite excited to discuss. David Brown, another OmniTalk veteran. David, why don't you give our listeners a quick background on you, your role out there at A&M?
Sure, happy to, Anne. Great to be here. I lead the Consumer and Retail Group along with a couple others. Lifetime professional services, started in banking and now 25 plus years in consulting with the red thread of being retail kind of optimization programs, whether that be kind of turnaround growth, et cetera, really working across the whole value chain. So super excited to be here. Very sorry I missed the year-end show, but this will be great prep for this year.
Uh, it was like you were here in spirit, David, for sure. Like we did it, we didn't skip a beat with you. I mean, you're historically on the year-end show every year, and it felt like you were still there. Chad did a great job representing your point of view. And I've never heard the term red thread before, so I might have to borrow that if you're okay with it. Of course, well, I will attribute it to you as well. All right, Ann,
Absolutely.
should we get started with this week's
Let's
show?
do it. Let's do it.
All right. In this week's Fast Five, we've got news on return to office mandates from both Starbucks and Target this week. Yesterday's inflation report, supermarkets reportedly losing ground with younger shoppers, Shopify setting boundaries for AI agents on its merchant sites, and AWS's Daniele Stropa stops by to announce this month's retail tech startup of the month for the month of July. But we begin today with what may be the worst ketchup secret. Chad, I'm so glad you're on the show this week because I know you're going to get that reference. The worst ketchup secret in history. And
Yes, we promised a headline for Chad. Here it is. Headline number one: Kraft Heinz is preparing to break itself up a decade after an infamous merger of the two biggest names in packaged foods that was orchestrated by Warren Buffett and Brazilian private equity firm 3G Capital Partners. According to the Wall Street Journal, Kraft Heinz is planning to spin off a large chunk of its grocery business, including many Kraft products, into a new entity that could be valued as much as $20 billion on its own, according to people familiar with the matter. That would leave a company housing goods such as sauces and spreads like Heinz namesake ketchup and Dijon mustard brand Grey Poupon. The company has given priority to its faster growing offerings like hot sauces, dressings, and condiments, which are more in line with consumer preferences than processed lunch meats and cheeses. It hopes the two separate units could be in total more than Kraft Heinz' roughly $31 billion market value currently. Chad, what is your assessment of the Kraft Heinz breakup, and what is the potential value creation given as the rationale?
So first of all, it was a pretty big week for food M&A
Yeah.
overall. I believe this
yeah,
was just a day after Ferrero announced the deal to buy Kellogg,
Yes.
cereal division, right?
Mhm.
Um,
hmm
Listen, in this case, the massive devaluation that's occurred since the Kraft Heinz merger is stuff of legend, right? So, am I surprised to see this, like especially in this current era of pretty massive portfolio shaping and reshaping across food and bev CPG? No, not at all.
Mhm.
Bigger question is, will it work, right?
Right.
Um, Listen, the theory of M&A is painfully simple when you break it down, even though it's kind of painful to make work. You need to make the move that adds value.
Mhm.
And so the numbers that are being stated out in the article are, wow, we break it up, it's worth more than it is together. How does that work, right?
hmm
So, it's the inverse of an acquisition deal, right? If you're acquiring, you're betting on being able to disproportionately grow something more or faster than it otherwise could, or grow the same at a higher profit margin. Otherwise, you're paying for it in the purchase price.
Mhm.
That's what Ferrero is banking on by taking those slower moving cereal brands from Kellogg. That's what JM Smucker bet on with Hostess. Countless examples. If you're divesting and breaking things apart, you're getting rid of the boat anchors that others could do better than you, right? In this market, growth is hard. Folks have negative comps. So you're seeing this a lot. It's shrink to grow, right?
Mhm.
Could someone else do better with Oscar Mayer and Lunchables and mac and cheese when these brands aren't succeeding at Kraft Heinz? You know what? Probably, right? The
Mhm.
large conglomerate CPGs, they take off their pants one leg at a time like the rest of us. They have to allocate resources like anyone else. So, these brands, they fall out of favor, kind of a death spiral internally. So, someone who can take them, make them higher priority, take the brand equity, invest in marketing, invest in innovation. It's been shown numerous times that it works. And that's what they're banking on here, which does make sense if there's a willing party, which is always the other side of it. But the breakup, I mean, it's just a couple of years ago in terms of what Kellogg did, into Kellanova and
hmm
Kellogg, and now
Mhm.
that's selling off to Ferrero, who's going to try to put it on speed. It's a 10-year journey here that that reached kind of an inevitable conclusion, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah. Chad, how much do you think like regulation is going to impact, in the past you had these mergers and acquisitions or divestitures happening. Do you think that there's less opportunity now because of the requirements to change ingredients or remove artificial flavorings and that kind of stuff in this kind of category that will impact that?
I don't know that it has an impact specifically on a deal like this. I mean, listen, the
Okay.
entire food industry is on watch right now when
Right.
it comes to that.
Right.
That's just becoming, at this point, some degree of table stakes of how the industry
Yeah.
needs to react going forward. I'm not sure that individual, especially brands in this kind of catalog, that ultimately is going to be a deterrent or an accelerator on M&A activity.
Got it. And David Brown, where do you see the opportunity here from this? As somebody who's worked in professional services for a long time, if Kraft Heinz is coming to you with their separate companies now, what are some of the key things that you think could be or actions that could be taken right now to help the success of the future of
Yeah,
the business?
I agree with a lot of what Chad said, and I think there's a couple other angles. One, I think what we're seeing now is the dismantling or the proof point that a lot of the 3G work just really didn't work, right?
Yeah.
That, all of these billions of dollars of cost synergies that were supposed to happen
Hmm.
really haven't worked because of either the complexity of the organizations or, as Chad said, the resource allocation, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the opportunities as you split these apart is really going to be laser focused on what
Hmm.
matters
Yeah.
for the consumer.
Right.
So you pick a strategy and then you ruthlessly execute against it. It's really hard to pick, you know, six different strategies within an organization and execute it against it effectively,
Hmm.
because it just doesn't work, right?
Yep.
So I think that's what we're seeing more than anything here. And as you kind of divest and be able to get more focused, I think the other interesting thing that I haven't seen in any of the press on any of these deals yet, uh, is as they go to either get sold to foreign entities or foreign entities are looking at them, the regulations do matter, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot more ingredients that are limited outside of the U.S. than
Right.
inside the U.S. That's a whole
Mhm.
different debate
Right.
that we could have. But also the ongoing tariff situation.
Hmm.
And like if you start moving, kind of manufacturing plants or, now you're re-importing cereal or mac and cheese or whatever it is, you could be talking about drastically different price points.
Right.
So
Right. And
it'll
they
be how that plays out on the valuations.
Right. And Kraft Heinz has had this innovation center focused on, on product design and development for 75 years or something now too, but likely focused on the US market and what they're doing here, not what those regulations are probably going to be when you're looking at overseas buyers. Chris Walton, round us out here. What else would you add to what David and Chad had to say?
Yeah, I don't think I'd add much, but I do have an analogy that I use to think about these things. I think
Yeah.
of it like, whenever it was, what would they say? It was 15 years ago that this merger happened. To me, it's just like, it's like a marriage, and the marriage didn't work out, and they need to separate, and they're not as sexy, they're not as good looking, they're not as happy as they were when they were apart from each other. And so now they've got to separate and potentially get back into the gym and start working out and finding the happiness in life. And potentially there's another acquirer down the road. And maybe to David's point, that acquirer is an international company that is farther ahead on understanding the different puts and takes with, refining product formulations and all that. So that's how I look at this. It's just, the natural progression that happens for a lot of folks in many aspects of life.
I love it.
Except for you, Chris, who's gotten sexier over time.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you, Chad.
wow.
Thank you. Flattery will get you
Wow.
everywhere on this podcast, Chad. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, let's move on that note because I'm riding high already for on this to start today off. All right. Headline number 2. Both Starbucks and Target issued return to office orders this week. According to local Minneapolis NBC affiliate Care 11, shout out to Care 11, Target's chief commercial officer, Rick Gomez, said that starting September 2nd, He's asking all team members to work in person at least 3 times a week, adding that there will be flexibility, including allowing employees to decide which 3 days to work in person. Sounds a little half pregnant to me. Target reportedly doesn't mandate its employees to work remotely or in person. Rather, individual leaders make the decisions based on what's best for their teams. Starbucks, in contrast, said employees will have to work in the office a minimum of 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, starting in October. The new requirement, which is up from a previous one of 3 days, applies to workers in Starbucks Seattle and Toronto support centers, as well as North American regional offices. For workers who decide to opt out and leave the company instead of meet the new 4-day requirement, Starbucks is offering a, quote, one-time voluntary exit program with a cash payment, end quote. David, lots of companies are instituting back-to-office policies this week, some mandating 4 days like Starbucks, others like Target keeping it loose as far as when people need to be in the office for their 3 expected days. Is there a best practice across the industry at this point, or how should retail executives think about this challenge?
Yeah, this is a super interesting one, Chris, to me. Like, I don't know if there's a best practice. I will say this, that the majority of my clients, and I think our clients, are moving back towards this, right? And, being in the office more. I don't think it's going back to 5 days a week anytime soon. I do think there's been some lessons learned about that you can have some remote workforce, and there's a work-life balance that just naturally comes with not being in the office 5 days a week. But on the flip side of that, I will tell you that the clients that I see that are in the office more, collaborating more, just being in the same room to make big decisions are more productive. They're more efficient, and I actually think they make better decisions because there's just something about the human element that is missing on when you're 3, 4, 5 days a week on Zoom calls. You don't build relationships as well. You really can't have as active a debate where you're getting super demonstrative or whatever in the room, being very Italian and talking with your hands. But
Right. I never thought about that. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm surprised it's taken this long, quite frankly, kind of
Oh, really?
post-COVID. But I do think, if I was to think about kind of a best practice, and if it was my company, I would probably have 3, 4 days a week, and with some flexibility, because I think there is huge value to being in person. Now, yeah, do I hate traveling as much now again as I do, and being away from the family? Probably, sure, but I do think for the companies there's value.
Yeah, there's puts and takes with every job, really, at the end of the day. David, let me ask you, because we put both of these headlines in on purpose, the Starbucks and the Target dichotomy in terms of how they're handling it. Do you think, I'm curious, do you approve of one approach over the other? Say Starbucks saying you have to be in these 4 days, whereas Target saying like it's up to the individual manager's discretion which 3 days of the week they want to be in. How do you think about that? Is there
Yeah,
is there a
I
right
do
or a
think
wrong way
I
to
do
that?
think yeah, no, I do think there is a right way. I do think if you're
Okay.
gonna pick some minimum number of days, you have to define those days. Otherwise,
You have to
they
standardize
are
those
with
days.
3 days, right? That leaves
Mm-hmm.
40% of the time. And if you do the math, and I'm not going to do the math right now, but you could end up with 1 day a week overlap, right? And so
Right.
what have you really accomplished there then, right? Set the operating rhythms of the company, and set a series of meetings where people can be together. And I'm not a huge advocate of meeting just for meeting's sake, but
Mm-hmm.
um, but if you're going to have the benefit of people being in the office,
Yeah.
you actually have to have them in the office together.
Mm-hmm.
So I would mandate, whether it's Tuesday to Thursday or whatever, but I would go to the mandate route.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're in the office on Zoom with many people still. And I saw you shaking
Exactly.
your head. Do
Yeah.
you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems like it's actually more work when you don't
It
specify
does.
what the days are. Like on top of just what David was saying, trying to
Great
make sure
point.
that you're getting Zoom calls coordinated when people are not in the office. Like now you have to have that extra layer for each one of those managers to figure out. And I just think like that it also seems a little disruptive to the whole organization too. Like, I think the Starbucks approach makes much more sense. Like, you're not just working at a Target, you're not just working with your team. Like, you're working with teams throughout the organization, hopefully. And so I think standardizing it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I 100% I 100% agree with you, Ann. I think you said it very well. Chad, what's your take? Do you have any other light you'd share on this, given your personal experience in working with retailers across the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with everything David said in terms of the merits and values and what we've observed and experienced of in-person work, right? You know, easier to maintain relationships remotely, harder to build new ones. Decisions get made faster, and quite frankly, psychologically, right? People have feelings of higher collaboration, i.e., less transactional when they're in person. You know, we're generally social creatures, so I would also imagine in person leads to higher engagement, more connection, and loyalty to the job and company, higher satisfaction. Don't have the data, but you know, as you guys are debating Starbucks versus Target's model and which is better, and you know, kind of the practicality of logistics aside, you know, I think what I'd add is like corporate cultures are different and
Yeah.
policies need to align with the values and cultural norms of that company, right? They have to balance the productivity with recruitment and retention. Um, it can't be viewed in a vacuum, right? So how employees are treated and respected and valued in other ways than just office policy. Right. So, you know, maybe an illusion of flexibility when corporate culture is way more restrictive, right, can just be lip service. Or if you do have a more restricted mandatory policy, but employees do feel valued and respected, it can work and make sense. So I would just, you know, continue to advise companies to make sure that the policies that they're doing aligns with their overall culture and values.
Mhm. Yeah, the point I'd add on top of that, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm not sure exactly how to articulate it. So you guys will need to give me some space here and maybe even help me out to articulate it. I think in addition to the culture, there's also the work that is required from the company itself inside of that culture. And so, you know, I look at Target and the commercial team, that's basically the merchant and the inventory planning teams, the planning and allocation teams. And you know, as I was stepping back from this story, both for Starbucks and Target, I was like, okay, yeah, if your job is to put products in front of customers in physical spaces, it probably is important for you to work together, to get into the stores together, to understand that, to be in charge of that, to make it work the best way. Because my guess, and from what I'm hearing from a lot of people, and I've been hearing this for the past 2 or 3 years, the remote work has been a big reason why we're seeing all these pictures of Target's out of stock shelves throughout social media constantly. And that's because I think these teams are not together working through the issues and not, you know, going down to the store right next door and being like, look, what are we doing about this? You can't get together to solve that problem in a way that's easy and efficient. So sorry for not articulating that as well as I normally would try to do, but I think there's something to that in terms of the work that has to be done as well.
Chris, you bring up a really good point too. It's like, how is this being measured too? Like, I don't know. Like, is it just simply like productivity that's being measured once people are coming back to work? But like, are there teams at these companies who are really investigating like what positives are we seeing from this? Like, how do we measure the success of our organizations after being able to do that? Is it just full shelves, or you know, what else are they tracking to make sure that this is the right move too?
Well, that's a pretty easy measurable metric, you know, like, do we see in-stock improvement once we force the teams back in the office? I mean, that's one. Can you correlate it directly? No. Is it required? Not necessarily, but it probably doesn't hurt.
Right. All right, let's move on to headline number 3. Tariff-driven inflation may now be starting to emerge. According to the Associated Press, inflation rose last month to its highest level since February as President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs push up the cost of a range of goods, including furniture, clothing, and large appliances. Consumer prices rose 2.7% in June from a year earlier, the Labor Department said on Tuesday, up from an annual increase of 2.4% in May. On a monthly basis, prices climbed 0.3% from May to June after rising just 0.1% the previous month. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core inflation raised 2.9% in June from a year earlier, up from 2.8% in May. On a monthly basis, it picked up 0.2% from May to June. David, I hope you were keeping track of all those percentages as I was reading them. What impact do you predict tariffs will have on retail for this upcoming holiday season?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Anne. And I think the short answer is I don't know yet.
Okay.
Okay.
We're getting dangerously close, but let's be honest, without getting into the whole political discussion, President Trump's playing a giant game of chicken with the rest of the world, right? In terms of who's going to blink first. Because I think nobody believes that, you know, high tariffs across the world are a good thing, right? And if there isn't resolution, I think it's going to have an enormous impact on the holiday season. Across all categories, whether it's luxury goods, toys, apparel, it really doesn't matter. Everything is going to be affected, and it's just a share of wallet issue, right?
Right.
People have so much money to spend on holiday gifts and family excursions and everything along those lines. And I think you're going to see a rebalancing of how those dollars get spent to more experiential things as
Right.
opposed to less material things. If they still end up being, kind of 20, 30, 40% more expensive.
Right.
Uh, but we just nobody could tell you right now with any certainty what the tariffs are going to be when we get into the heart of the holiday season.
Right.
Uh, and anybody that says they can is either lying or hopelessly optimistic.
Right. Or, and who knows what products will be on shelves. Chris, you were just talking about this in the last headline. Like we're already seeing out of stocks at Target and other places. What do you think, as a former merchant in particular, like what do you think we're going to see once we head into the holiday season as a result of this?
Yeah, I agree with David. Like, we don't know what tariffs will be in place during the holiday season, but I do think there are some, things that we can potentially bet on. And everyone knows on this show knows I'm a betting man if you look at my Kentucky Derby track record. But I think if I was betting and looking at what's going to happen, I think there's two things I'm pretty confident about. I think one, I think this will be the least well stocked shelves are across all of retail that we've seen for a long time. And so
Hmm.
and so that then therefore means the proclivity we've seen for consumer spending to get pushed up into October by way of Prime Day, which kicks it off, is going to happen even more this year because people are going to need to get in there and get what they can when they can get it for those gifts and for the holidays. So those are the two things I would bet on. It's not going to be great stock position because people are probably waiting to decide where to place their bets, how much they're going to place. They just don't know yet. At least that's what I'm surmising. But you guys, the A&M group, can probably answer that better than I can. But yeah, I think you're going to see people trying to grab things as quickly as they can on deals early in the season too.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, Chad, we'll go to you next, but I also wonder like the mass retailers that we're talking about, the Walmarts, the Targets, these guys are prepared or have the ability to be more agile when it comes to these types of things. I'm wondering what the small, medium-sized businesses are going to do because they cannot tolerate the constant fluctuation. And I think that also impacts, when it comes to gift giving and holiday times of year, are we in the sea of sameness where it's like your options are whatever Target and Walmart and Amazon still have left in stock, and that's what you're going to get. We had Chris and Sevilla on the show not too long ago talking about how it's the sea of sameness. We're going to see, all beige goods. We're not going to see the like highlight pop of color in apparel or accessories that used to be that intriguing and fun, more personal kind of gift. So I'm curious, Chad, like, what do you think shoppers are going to see? Are they going to go the way of what David's saying, where, they're just going to have to cross their fingers and hope that they can get the best thing possible? Or are there things that your clients or that other retailers and brands can be doing now to kind of help still give people that thing to shop for, that unique gift?
Yeah. Really, really great avenues that you guys have laid out. So if I first answer from kind of the advisory standpoint and then maybe
Yeah.
the prognostication standpoint, I mean,
Love it.
listen, with respect to tariffs and actually predating that to the last round of hyperinflation, what we're advising our clients is first, minimize the impact as much as possible, right? Leave no stone unturned when it comes to cost reduction. You have to
Hmm.
approach it there first before even testing how much is too much for the consumer to bear in pricing. Like a hard look of costs across the board, not just in COGS, is mandatory. But
Hmm.
then as far as pricing, and those that'll be more successful in that then have the ability to have more flexibility to your point. And when it comes to pricing, like especially at this stage, it has to be precise, right? Looking
Hmm.
at consumer price elasticities by SKU, being selective on where your hikes versus holds are. But blanket moves are going to be tough to do again more broadly, or people are going to find themselves out of the market, right?
Hmm.
I mean, as far as going into the back part of the year here, I mean, I agree. Listen, we can't predict exactly where things are going to hit and how. I think we are going to continue to see upward movement in kind of the staples and essentials categories. So
Okay.
grocery, personal care, pet, and private labels not exempt from these. So I think we'll likely see them move together. And where you may see more holds, especially for holiday season here, is in your more traditional gift giving discretionary spend areas like apparel, and it'll be tough, but electronics, right? They're too important for the season. And I love what David said. We've already seen shifting last year toward experiences
Right.
versus goods on holiday gift giving. Um, but I also agree. I mean, I think it's important that where prices do rise, I expect significantly lower inventory positions for those items at holiday, right? I think
Okay.
retailers will be more content to sell out, than be left with tremendously expensive inventory piles. And so it'll be those that can manage the SKU balance with how they're able to optimize
Yeah.
cost
Yeah.
and pointed pricing actions relative to inventory for the season. And man, it's a tricky balance.
Yeah,
Well
yeah.
said.
I don't. I'm. I don't miss being in those rooms making those decisions one bit right now, especially during with this climate. All right. Well, let's bring Daniele onto the show to announce July's retail tech startup of the month. Let's give a big Omni talk. Welcome back to AWS's Daniele Stropa. Daniele is the worldwide technical lead for AWS partners in retail at Amazon Web Services, where he drives the technical strategy for AWS partners in digital commerce, customer engagement, and generative AI. Daniele, it is hard to believe that it has already been 1 month since we handed out our first Retail Startup of the Month award, but that was June. Now it's July. So who is this month's Retail Tech Startup of the Month?
This month, pick is Bria AI, and I'm really excited to share what they're doing in the industry and how they are revolutionizing content creation for brands.
Is so Bria, Bria dot
Correct,
AI.
yeah.
Bria AI. Why? What do they do? Why is it so important in your mind? And what kind of sets them apart from other players in the space?
So Bria is a visual generative AI platform.
Okay.
However, they are not just another text to image generator, right? We've
Yes.
seen many of those. They built what they call a builder first platform. And
Okay.
that really focuses on three key aspects, three key things. The first one is bringing commercial value to their customer. So helping businesses creating on-brand content that actually drives results. The second one is ease of integration. So their technology is available in different or is accessible through different mechanisms, and that can plug right into existing workflows. So ease of adoption as well. And the last one, which I think it's huge for enterprises, is really the fact that the content that Bria creates is fully compliant, it's safe to use. Their model is trained on properly licensed data and commercial data. So that's a huge aspect for enterprises. One thing that I think really sets Bria apart from the rest is the ability to maintain brand integrity. They have a feature called tailor generation, where basically customers, brands can take Bria's model, they can fine-tune it, adapt it so that it creates content specific for a brand, for a product. So they're not just, let's say, messing around with the actual products. They place the actual products in different contexts, in different scenarios, with proper lighting and shadows, maintaining the proportions. So it's really like having a professional studio at your fingertips, just more scalable and faster.
And Daniele, this is for an example with this might be product images, might be different ads that you're creating for retail media. Is there any other example of this that you could provide?
Yeah, I mean, retail media is definitely one of the use cases. Social media campaigns and any kind of communication or customer engagement that brands are doing, but also the product detail pages, right? So that's something where it's often the case where you see products in a lifestyle scenario.
Right.
So it can really relate with users on a more personal level.
So Danilo, let's get you out of here on this. So what are the long-term implications of AI image generation? You know, when you think about it broadly across the industry, like for the retail executives that are listening, like what do they need to know in terms of why this is an important topic and how things are going to change in this direction?
Content creation, content generation is time consuming, is expensive when you need to do it at scale for thousands of products, and possibly even multiple times a year when you have different collections, different seasons. So here we are talking about reducing dramatically the cost of creating this type of content, achieving faster time to market, and the ability to create personalized content at scale, all while maintaining that brand consistency. Imagine being able to create thousands of product imagery for an e-commerce stores in minutes instead of weeks, or being able to run localized social media campaigns across different markets without incurring into huge production cost. So I think what Brea is doing here is really addressing a key challenge in the industry. It's not just a cool technology that they have built. It's a practical solution that can easily be integrated into existing system, again, which is crucial for large-scale adoption. And the focus on commercial value, brand integrity is something that is key for enterprises and for that commercial use. So I think Bria is really one of those startups that is worth keeping an eye on in this retail tech space.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Bria AI. Put it on your radar screen. Thanks, Danilo.
Thank you.
Okay, headline number 4. Supermarkets appear to be losing ground with younger shoppers. According to Grocery Dive, traditional supermarkets are falling out of favor with younger generations, with people in those cohorts increasingly turning to discount retailers to buy groceries, according to survey data published Tuesday by the Feedback Group. Gen Zers, Millennials, and Gen Xers, yes, shout out to all those Gen Xers out there, are most partial to Walmart, with more than a fifth of people in each of those groups who participated in a poll the research firm fielded this spring, saying they most recently shopped for food at the mass retailer. Those generations also showed a preference for Aldi, with Gen Zers especially likely to have made their latest grocery shopping trip at that chain. 22% of shoppers in that group shop for groceries most recently at Aldi, the same proportion that did so at Walmart. While supermarkets might be losing ground with younger shoppers, they remain popular with older consumers, the survey found. I love how the survey said older consumers. 28% of baby boomers And 31% of people in the silent generation, we got to come up with a better name for that generation than the silent generation. Well, they said they shop for groceries most recently at a supermarket ahead of other formats. Walmart came in at number 2 among members of both baby boomers and the silent generation, well ahead of Aldi. Chad, what advice would you have for regional grocers as they appear to be losing share with the younger generations, but still attracting boomers and the silent generation?
I'm not sure, first of all, where I fall into all of this. In generation. Wait, what are we calling me again? I don't know. I love when predictive data starts to actually play out in the market. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is we can go back, shameless plug, but we can go back to some of the learnings of
Yep.
within our A&M consumer and retail group. We do a semi-annual consumer sentiment survey. And we look at these sort of buying trends and look at all kinds of different spreads and segments of the population, household income, and there's a lot of generational preferences that have popped when it came to grocery over our past couple surveys. So, on the whole, younger grocery consumers are more price sensitive, and they're more likely to look and try out different products and assortments. They have a particularly high confidence in private label. They're interested in quality of goods, but they're the ones who disproportionately see a quality boost in store brands. So that trade-off for the better price isn't as significant to them because they feel like they're getting quality. And about half say they're likely or very likely to try new brands that they see, especially when they provide better for you health benefits. That's the playbook, right? And like these are the areas that Walmart and Aldi are winning at, right? Discount prices, high private
Yep.
label penetration with good quality that they invest in, healthy assortment options. And this is where we can see that, many regional grocers are falling behind. So look no further to the data and preference and purchase drivers of these generations, and the playbook is laid out in front of you.
Yeah, Chad, I'll give you another plug because in addition to your consumer sentiment survey, you guys also released a report on space planning, which I got thinking about in regards to this conversation too. And so, to answer the question from that perspective, in terms of the advice that I personally would give to the regional grocers would be, and I got it from talking to your team about that report, is you got to map out your current strengths and weaknesses. Know, as a grocer, and you got to do it by category, and then you have to ask yourself the hard question of how are those categories going to be trending 5 to 10 years out, and placing bets again on which trends you think are going to be most impactful against your overall value proposition. Is it going to be e-commerce? Is it going to be fresh food? Is it going to be food as medicine as the trend? And you need to get to work. You need to get to work designing your in-store experience and your digital experience, not just for today, because I feel like a lot of people are just designing both those experiences for today. You got to be designing it 5 to 10 years out. That's what I think. And that's why Walmart's killing it on both ends. They're killing it with the younger shoppers and the high income demo, which is why they're so strong right now. But I don't know, David, anything you'd add here?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is I think where you were going, Chris, is that I actually think that they're just a better experience, right? Like if I,
Right.
I just think about like
Got to amplify that.
the 3 or 4 options that I have here in my little hometown of Truckee, California. We have a Raley's One Market, which was the first Raley's One Market, which is an amazing experience. We have a brand new grocery outlet, which is a way better experience than the Safeway that is right across the street, and it's better prices, et cetera.
Right.
So, why wouldn't I go shop at some place that has a better experience and lower prices? I mean, it as Chad said, it's simple data, and the data's playing out.
Yeah, and all the data we're seeing is converging to this answer, this eventual thing. Like we saw a report yesterday on e-commerce and who's gaining the share in e-commerce that Mercatus put out, and it was saying the same thing. The same people are winning. Walmart, Aldi got highlighted in that too. And close us out here. What are your thoughts?
I think price is the biggest concern. Like, I think you have to be making sure that you're investing to make sure that your pricing is competitive in those areas. And the second thing I would say is content creation. Like, I think that even though you're a regional grocer, I think it's important to be thinking about how you're finding those new consumers and connecting with them. And I think of, creating video or creating other other types of engaging content that will show up in some of the places where Gen Z is too, because they don't know about you. Like, unless, Walmart, Target, Amazon, like these people are investing in creating content, capturing interest, sending out recipes, saying we have the trending product that you're talking about on TikTok. Like, they're investing in those areas, and there are partners that I think these regional grocers can find to help do that. So that they remain relevant, because like you said, then the research showed they're having this consistent audience across, boomers and even some older Gen Xers, but that's going to go by the wayside. So I'd be invested in, how am I creating content so that I show up for these audiences that are coming into the market in the places that they're spending the most time.
That's a great point. It calls to mind, what was it? Was it Stop and Shop that was doing the kiosks for the mobile couponing in store, and like, who's your muse as you're designing this? Is it the silent generation that's probably likely to use that kiosk, or are you, putting your resources towards what you're going to be in the future and what you want to be? That's a great point, Ann.
All right, let's go to headline number 5. Shopify is setting boundaries for AI agents on its merchant sites. According to Modern Retail, Shopify is drawing a line in the sand on agentic AI, the type of bots that autonomously complete tasks on their own without human inputs, with new language across merchant websites that appears aimed at blocking agentic AI systems. Shopify now includes a warning in their code that powers merchant storefronts, telling bots what they can and can't do. The message appears in each site's robots.txt file, a standard tool websites use to give instructions to automated crawlers like search engines. The new line states, quote, automated scraping, buy for me agents, or any end-to-end flow that completes payment without a final review step is not permitted, end quote. The move, however, is not likely an outright rejection of agentic AI. The added language directs legitimate integrators to use its official checkout kit. In other words, the change shows Shopify is thinking ahead, drawing early boundaries between controlled integration and unregulated automation. Shopify merchants could theoretically override the robots.txt file, as Shopify is a content management system. In other words, the change shows Shopify is thinking ahead, drawing early boundaries between controlled integration and unregulated automation. But the default setting suggests the platform is trying to protect its ecosystem by discouraging unauthorized AI scraping and checkout information. David, we're going to ask you a more top-level question here. I won't ask you about robots.txt files, but are retail boardrooms giving enough attention to agentic AI, or is Shopify ahead of the curve and trying to curb AI bot activity on its properties?
So a couple things here, Ann. One, I think this is the best news I have heard this year from a Shopify.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, like, if you try to book a reservation in New York City for any restaurant that's worth going to, if you want the latest collab with Adidas and Bonner, or pick any collabs that are out when they drop, you want to try to buy concert tickets on the day of release, you can't do any of that anymore as a person that is sitting in front of a computer and waiting for 10 a.m. and then clicking, right? It just doesn't happen, right? Because all of the bots have completely taken over. So I actually think this brings some validity back to the online shopping experience and allows humans to participate, which I think is a great thing. To your broader question, I think boardrooms are starting to pay attention to agentic AI in a lot of different ways, right? I think it's very analogous to almost the outsourcing journey, right? It's like there's the commodity stuff you can do with agentic AI of data aggregation and things like that, and like automating certain things or eliminating certain things. I think it's really tip of spear stuff, and very few people are doing really cool pricing, personalization, merchandising stuff yet, because the skill set is outrageously expensive to hire right now because there's not enough of it. So you're only seeing kind of the largest players, primarily in the tech space, that are kind of really pushing the envelope. I think retailers are a step or two behind the curve. But I think they're starting to realize that they are a step or two behind the curve, and the next couple of years are going to be interesting to see. A, the talent war, and then B, how that talent is deployed to help retailers.
Right. Well, certainly a reason, I think, like you said, I thought this was one of the most intriguing stories that we had this week on the Fast Five, but certainly something that, is going to push hopefully more retailers to start putting more focus on this as a priority for them. Chad, where do you sit on this? Are you feeling like this is being talked about enough in boardrooms that you're sitting in?
Well, I think there's probably lots of talk in boardrooms about
Sure.
agentic AI, but maybe not from the I don't know, kind of ethical or perspective that Shopify is coming at it, right? So it's about commerce maximization, and I do think Shopify is ahead of the curve in terms of thinking about that activity,
Hmm.
right? I mean, this raises huge questions around enforceability and legal consent and e-commerce. And personally, to me, I'm all in favor for slow playing AI in places where AI decision making imposes risk. I mean,
Hmm.
I love the idea of it, right? I mean, the consequences of allowing AI free reign to make mistakes or whatever the ramifications, like it can cost a lot of money, at the very least, piss a lot of people off. So
Hmm.
there is a spectrum in terms of in its development how AI should be used in decision making, right? And as David said, the super repetitive, lower risk, quite frankly, if there's little for the human to add, yeah, let AI run wild, right? But in these cases where either AI can err or it provides an imbalance in the market. So either around what the AI will do, so it's a
Hmm.
risk-based decision, or if there's something that a human can add to the decision or execution, so more of a value-based decision, we need the human intervention, at least until, we're developed at that point. And Shopify is saying that's the case with agentic AI, and frankly, I'm not going to push back on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a really good point, Chad, and I think it just re-emphasizes how important this is because I think we have to all be agile and ready to react and adapt our businesses to be in a position to change if we need to based on how search is going to be happening. I mean, I think we look at how Amazon was doing this. You could shop Aloe Yoga and buy a bra on Amazon even though they weren't in the Amazon marketplace. I think it's going to be really important for all brands, all retailers to focus on how this is going to continue to shift and then how search behavior is going to shift as a result. But Chris Walton, close us out.
Oh my God, yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on this one. I mean, I think, if I look at it from the executive perspective, the first question I ask myself is, why do we allow any of this? Why do we
Hmm.
allow bots to come in and scrape pricing? Like if I'm Walmart, why do I want my pricing out in the internet sphere? Like why do we allow that to happen? And so then I start thinking about the lobby efforts across the retail industry, and I'm like, we're spending all this time lobbying for credit card processing fees. Why aren't we lobbying for regulation to limit bot activity or to control bot activity in some way, shape, or form? So that's one question. But given that there's an absence of that, then the bigger question for me is, how does what we're talking about evolve? And my gut tells me that the agentic AI platforms are going to it's going to become Marketplace 2.0. And those agentic AI platforms are going to get a cut of the revenue directed from those retailers that ultimately allow them to plug in simply and easily. It won't be everybody, but it's going to be
Hmm.
some of them. And so the task list for me, if I'm a CEO or I'm in that boardroom trying to say, how do I do this, is I have to ask myself, what am I okay with getting scraped and what am I not okay with getting scraped? Like, do I want agentic agents on my site checking out for someone without that customer ever entering into my property? My guess is a lot of people probably don't. So then it comes down to, what's it going to cost for me to prevent certain information from getting transmitted that way? I don't know the answer to that. I don't even know if it's even possible. But those are the discussions. You've got to start outlining, what are we okay with, what are we not, and then go from there, in my opinion.
Yeah, and not just the economic costs, but what are the costs if the customer can't purchase? Like, are you going to see a reduction in customer spend or awareness of your product if you're not allowing that activity too?
You don't get the first party data. You don't get
Yep.
anything that you're used to getting. There's a lot of costs that come with allowing sites or bots to scrape you in
Right.
ways that you're not ready for.
Right. All right, you guys, let's close it up with the lightning round. Chad, you get question number one. Morrison's recently announced that it will limit which colleagues it allows in its stores' back rooms to prevent what they're calling, quote, idling and promote more service on the shop floor. Did you ever idle in a stockroom back in your early career days, Chad?
My first real job was I worked at a grocery store in the grill area when I was in high school, chef's hat and everything. Yes, I was the panini king.
The
There were
PDD King
very
of
likely
Chicago.
some yeah, there were likely some times that I idled in the back, maybe took
Sure.
a stroll through the, refrigerated cooler room when
Yep.
I, didn't want to maybe be next up for a customer order, if I got
Sure.
through a long lunch crowd or something. So
Yep.
yeah, probably prone to happen a few times.
Oh my gosh. Played some games with this pricing sticker gun behind the scenes. Sure. I see what you're doing there.
All right, next one. Call Her Daddy host Alex Cooper got booed mercilessly for her rendition of "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" at Wrigley Field last week. David, I'm guessing you saw the video of this. So if you were to serenade the crowd during the seventh inning stretch, how would you handle it? Would you straight sing it or would you ham it up?
Yeah, well, I'm the world's worst singer, so I would never get asked to sing it, but I think I'd have to go it's one of the great traditions and it's so classical. I think you got to go straight, sing it, engage the crowd and do it by the book. It's the only otherwise it's just way too risky, right? And it's
Way
not
too
as much
risky.
fun.
Yeah.
All right. David, you get question number three as well. Nextdoor just announced that they're replatforming with the help of AI to focus on more real-time news and safety updates for neighbors and cut back on the cranky neighbor posts. Have you ever posted on the app? And if so, why? And extra points here if it was to shut down one of those cranky neighbors.
Yeah, so I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but I'll admit it anyways.
Are
I
you
was
the
gonna say,
cranky neighbor?
I was gonna say,
No,
if
no,
you
no, no,
said
no.
no, you're lying. You're definitely lying if you said
I am
no.
not the cranky neighbor, but I have shut down a cranky neighbor
Oh,
using my wife's account
Oh, okay. Nice.
without her authorization, of course. Which when it was found out did make me contribute to the luxury goods market as a
Doghouse.
like to get myself out of the doghouse. But yeah, I actually think it's a really good thing, like that they're replatforming.
Wow.
that's
Great
amazing.
story, David. God, yeah, I 100% agree. All right. An influencer, Mia Zilu, I think I'm pronouncing that name right, an AI powered social media star who has amassed over 150 Instagram followers by sharing sexy pics of herself at various tennis events, took Wimbledon by storm last week. But there's a catch. If you caught that, Mia is not real. She is 100% AI generated. And I looked at the photos and I cannot tell the difference, folks. Chad, how long do you think before AI influencers start popping up inside of retail stores like actual shoppers?
Well, I guess I'm glad that you're asking me a more professionally oriented question related
Yeah,
to
this
that
could have gone in
headline.
so many directions, Chad.
Otherwise, I don't even know what I would say. Like, do we get sexy AI in Lululemon? What does that mean? Listen, I don't
It's coming.
actually think AI modeling is that far off, honestly. The economics of cutting down on marketing creative and photo shoots and all, like the first ones who do it are going to get some, public backlash for sure, but I think it'll be short-lived and this actually will happen.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's probably closer than it appears. The objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Is that what you're saying, Chad?
But closer than maybe we'll realize, given that no one even knew that this person, that this wasn't a person. So
I honestly could not tell the difference. All right. Well, that closes us up. Thanks for a great show, you two. Happy birthday today to Fatboy Slim, Corey Feldman, and to the man who helped us all wonder if there is enough time on Saturday to go to Home Depot and Bed Bath & Beyond in the same day, the incomparable Will Ferrell. And remember, if you can only read or listen to one retail blog in the business, make it Omni Talk, the only retail media outlet run by two former executives from a current top 10 U.S. retailer. Our Fast Five podcast is the quickest, fastest rundown of all the week's top news, and our daily newsletter, the Retail Daily Minute, tells you all you need to know each day to stay on top of your game as a retail executive, and also regularly features special content that is exclusive to us and that Ann and I take a lot of pride in doing just for you. Thanks as always for listening in. Please remember to like and leave us a review wherever you happen to listen to your podcast or on YouTube. You can watch this episode in its entirety by simply going to youtube.com/Omni Talk Retail. Chad, if people were listening, they want to get in touch with the A&M Consumer and Retail Group, pick your brains, you and David's brains, about anything that's on their minds, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can always learn more about us and our practice at alvarezandmarsal-crg.com. Find us on our LinkedIn at Alvarez and Marsal Consumer and Retail Group. But because we're so gosh darn approachable, feel free to reach out directly to David and I, and happy to connect.
All right. Well, thank you again to David Brown and Chad Lusk of the A&M Consumer and Retail Group for joining us as they do every month. And on behalf of all of us at Omni Talk Retail, as always, be careful out there.